understand Gamergate. I've heard that the coverage of it was unfair. I've heard that. I don't know how you know our stuff. We know gamers, right? I've been involved in gaming for like 10 hours a day for the last 6 years, right? That's more time than you might have guessed. And I can tell you, women are not treated the same. You know, I have the best Minecraft server in the universe, or multiverse, woodycraft.net. And if a girl dares to wade into our faction server, she will get attention in a way that guys don't. You know, she is instantly known, especially if her name, if her in-game name implies, being female.
Trixie XXX69,
It might have Jennifer in it, which I feel like isn't the same cry of like blowjob giver 22 or something like that. It's Jennifer, it's her name, right?
That's actually my name. Like, I'm not sure you should be broadcasting that live because people are going to start like messaging me. Like, it's very.
Wouldn't want to blow up your spot.
There's other stuff that to me, it might just be a byproduct of being feminine. Like we had a player whose name had enchanted in it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's...
People presumed it was a girl.
It was. And, but it's, I feel like girls are different than guys, and they might be attracted to an in-game name that says enchanted in a way that guys aren't. So, and they come on, and all of a sudden, like, every guy is... I was going to say pounding on that has a whole other thing. Like every guy is kind of like giving her attention and
came back at just the right moment.
Not always positive attention. And
yes, but you know why? You know why? Because these guys are like marginalized. They've never seen a woman before. Then this isn't. Look, the difference between his just one of the many subtle but deliberate mischaracterizations of the gaming media, and then the rest of the media is like they talk about stuff like this. And yeah, there's some truth to some of this. Sometimes in some places, but this isn't an example of some kind of like predatory rape culture where a woman reveals herself and she is descended on by misogynistic harassment and abuse. You want to see a rape culture looking Cologne, where they've imported young men from a real rape culture into Germany. This is like in many cases like marginalized autistic guys just sort of spurging out that there's a woman there, and I don't
that's a new word for me, spurging out. I
love that. Spurging
it's
out.
good, isn't it? And I don't mean that with any disrespect to these guys, and I don't think they would mind me saying that. Many of these people are my fans, and many of these people love me, and I don't think they would mind me saying that. But in many cases, it's a sort of it's an event, it's a spectacle, and they're grateful for the girl there. And if they don't always know how to behave, that's a failing of social sophistication, etiquette, and appropriate behavior. Not sexism, not abuse, not harassment. And
let me just interrupt.
Yeah.
While
Sure.
I don't completely disagree when you say it's a failure of social norms. I can't quote you, even though it was 10 seconds ago. But it's also what happens when you add anonymity and a lack of repercussions. There's something about 4chan. I don't know if you're familiar with 4chan at all, but it's
very familiar.
Okay, well then everybody is
favorite
anonymous.
website on the internet. So tread carefully.
All right, so everybody in 4chan is anonymous, and because of that, like you've probably seen the thing about the girl advantage being removed, right? You know how they don't have to be interesting. And
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For people not familiar with it, there's this theory, I hope I get it right, where they say like, oh, the reason girls are treated as it's tits or get the fuck out because it's the only way that they get to regain their girl advantage. Otherwise, they're just judged purely on the way that guys are by how clever or fun.
Exactly.
They are.
Women don't like that, so tits will get the fuck out isn't a misogynistic, isn't a reflection of misogynistic culture. It's actually even worse for progressives. It's worse than sexism. Tits will get the fuck out is incredibly threatening to progressive orthodoxy. Not because it's sexist, but because it seeks to eliminate identity politics, and it seeks to destroy the basis of progressive thinking, which is that who you are and what you're able to do and what you think stems from what you are, and that is a direct assault on the fundamental principles of modern progressivism, which is why they hate it.
There's something interesting about 4chan in that everybody's a faggot, everybody's a nigger, and it's just like this is what happens when you pull away the repercussions, and there's like an equality to it too,
Yes.
So anyway, circling back to the gamer thing, when you apply the same level of anonymity, it allows their inner douchebag to come out And it's not just like, oh, they're not being taught social norms. No, they're put in an environment where social norms have no repercussions, and this is what you get.
But that's not always such a bad thing.
That's like an online forum thing more so than in game. I notice, I feel like people are way more likely to be a douchebag in a forum that's anonymous like Reddit than if you get into a Call of Duty lobby and there's a chick in there. 9 times out of 10, it's not them yelling awful sexist things at her. It's them trying to get her to like join a party or being friendly. Like that heavily outweighs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, if your voice is involved and it's not text based, absolutely.
They don't
I've
want
seen that so many times.
They don't want to chase the woman out. They want to play with the woman. They want the woman to. They want attention from the woman. They want approval from the woman. They don't want that woman to leave. They want them to come in.
I've seen it so many times. I have female friends that I used to play with on a regular basis. I would get on every night, and there was a girl who would get on and play with me. And as soon as someone heard that voice, they're like, and she would tell me, obviously, because we're actually in a private chat, but they're pinging her with messages. Hey, come play with us. We're really good. We'll take care of you. They're literally like trying to be some alpha male out in. They're de-evolving to cavemen. They're like, oh, we protect you.
A lot of women find that
strong tribe.
She was a good
lot
player.
of women find attention at scale to be very threatening, right? But that doesn't mean that what they're getting are threats. Women find that uncomfortable. Women find that, like difficult to deal with. They don't like the volume of attention they're getting, but that doesn't make the attention hostile. It doesn't make the motivation hostile. It simply means that the social dynamics of that situation are, such that they don't necessarily always suit very sensitive women. Okay, but you cannot compare like Call of Duty or any of these other games, even if it's like Dota or something, which can be very aggressive. You cannot compare that with POL.
Wait,
where
what was that
with
word?
POL on 4chan, POL.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you.
You cannot compare it with POL. And the other thing I find infuriating about games journalism, these guys all lived in these worlds. They've been on 4chan. They've lived in these video game communities. And what they do is, they shit on their own past and their own hobby and their own teenage years. When what they do is they'll step back and then pick out, like cherry pick elements of what I find to be a beautiful, fragile, fascinating subculture where some of the most interesting conversations on the internet happen. Which is why preserving anonymity is so important. That's a whole other conversation. We have a whole other 4-hour show about like why anonymity is important. But I think it's one of the most important things on the internet. It must be protected at all costs. And it gives rise to these incredibly valuable fragile subcultures. What these journalists do, journalists who know better, they deliberately lie to their readers by, for example, pulling out faggot and saying, "See, it's homophobic." Or they'll pull out nigger and they'll say, "See, it's racist." Tits will get the fuck out. "See, it's sexist." And what they do is they construct this specter, this horror show, this hypothetical horror show of a sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, straight white male bigot, and they use that stereotype to fuck over the people they don't like and to bully people. That person doesn't exist. He's a construct. And he's a construct put together by deliberately disingenuous cherry picking of a culture that everyone on this call understands. And those journalists understand too. They get it too.
I don't know that I'd want anything to change because I'm afraid that the alternative is worse than the reality. But that, like, you say, hey, it's an overwhelming attention that women don't like. I, as a minor league internet celebrity, sometimes get that overwhelming attention too, and it's hard. It's hard when people target you. In Call of Duty, after you kill someone, you can hear what they say for a couple of seconds. They're calling out my position. They're saying Woody's in greenhouse, first floor, and it's like, this is making it so much more difficult.
But would you call that harassment?
No, not harassment, but I'm saying
that's what the journalists do.
A level
that's
of
what they're mischaracterizing.
Harassment's not the right term for it, but it's a more difficult playing field when you get more attention than you would have otherwise. And I see it in game even on Minecraft, which is probably...
But you know what? Many strong women, and I would join these strong women in saying, oh, you're popular. Well, boo fucking who? What an awful life for you that everybody wants to know you and everyone wants to be around you. You go on as a woman in these environments and suddenly everybody wants to be your best friend. What a problem to have. Like, get a grip.
Yeah.
There are people who cannot deal with this situation. Those people shouldn't put themselves in environments they're not going to be comfortable in. This is just like the real world. If you're not comfortable in, areas that you feel unsafe in, like, for example, walking down, a ghetto back alley at 3 a.m. in the morning, don't put yourself in that situation. Why should we sanitize and police and control every online environment? To make it like it's midday in the middle of Knightsbridge, or like in some nice bit of town where no one's going to speak to you or look at you, or and in fact many of those nice bits of town have just as much crime as everywhere else. We've got this idea that we should create some sort of bizarre utopia online. Well, the world isn't like that, and people aren't like that. People need to let off steam. People need to explore their own sexuality, identity, to explore who they are. 4chan is like a really essential pressure valve for a lot of young boys who increasingly don't have anywhere else in life to let off that steam. If they're in the playground and they get a bit too boisterous, they get whacked on fucking psychotropic drugs. So what do? They go to Pol and they let off steam, and they pretend to be an anti-Semite because it's shocking and it's fun, and they try to be like the worst, most outrageous person in the world. I find it funny. If you don't find it funny, don't fucking go there, right? But don't, knowing better, go into that community, cherry pick, terminology from it and habits from it that exist to protect that community, not to attack anybody else. People from Pol don't go out into the rest of the world and cause havoc unless they're forced to. Look at what happened with Gamergate and 4chan, right? Christopher Poole banned Gamergate from 4chan. What happened? Gamergate spilt out into the whole rest of the internet. Gamergate would never have been such a big thing if two things hadn't happened. One, if I hadn't got involved, forgive me for the conceit. But and two, if he hadn't banned it on 4chan, because where did those people go? They went to Reddit, they went to Twitter, they went to comment sections. They became so much more visible. They started showing up in other people's houses. Yeah. What should have happened is just let it happen in a safe environment, rather than going in and destroying what is actually a sort of male safe space, if you like. We're constantly told about safe spaces for women, safe spaces for blacks, safe spaces for everybody else. Well, sometimes young men need safe spaces too. Older men need them as well. Pubs, golf clubs, all of those are going because feminists say they're all sexist environments, they've got to be shut down. Men don't really have anywhere to go to be men anymore. And young boys feel that need acutely. Young boys really need those spaces. And it's a very poorly understood kind of safe space, but it is a really essential one. And when you attack them by deliberately misrepresenting what they are and what they do and who is there, it doesn't just do a disservice to your readers, but it is the sort of ugly sociopathic behavior that I hate from when feminists do it, and I hate it when these games journalists do it, because these games journalists should be the people sticking up for those guys. They should be the champions of those guys. They should do what they did in the 90s when Jack Thompson was saying video games, create, school shooters and turn everyone violent. They should be doing the same thing with sexism. There's no reason to suppose if video games don't make you violent, which there's no evidence that they do. There's no reason to suppose that video games can make you sexist either. None of the studies suggest that this is the case. There is no evidence whatsoever. The worst you can say is that the jury is out on both of them, and even that is, you have to be incredibly charitable to the other position to arrive at that. Journalists ought to be sticking up for these guys. They should be defending these as what I think they are, which is precious, fragile, fascinating subcultures, places where conversations happen that don't happen anywhere else on the internet. You can go and read Pol, and if you're the sort of person who can just set aside the faggot, the nigger, the Jew stuff, you find incredibly brilliant minds debating stuff that really matters in a way that is censored everywhere else you go on the internet. You look at Reddit, right? This week, you couldn't talk about cologne honestly on Reddit because you'd get banned and censored. Yeah, the stuff that we wrote stories about this at Breitbart Tech. At least two of you are nodding because you recognise this. You couldn't go onto Reddit and talk about the physical attributes of the assailants for about 18 hours until it became impossible to lie about it anymore. But you could do it on 4chan.
Can you outline